Hello and welcome to today's webinar. A little housekeeping before we begin. Everyone is muted during the webinar. All webinars will be recorded and sent to all attendees after the webinar has concluded. Tomorrow, the recorded webinar will be sent out to all participants. There will be a Q&A at the end of the presentation, but please feel free to ask questions during the webinar by clicking on the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Once the presentation concludes, I will ask the questions presented in the Q&A box. I may not get to everyone's questions, but we will do our best. With that being said, I would like to introduce you to Ruben Franco, President and CEO of the Orange County Hispanic Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Edna, and thank you everybody for being on this call, this webinar today on understanding certifications, contracting, and procurement, our entire series. This one specifically will be how to do business with the federal government, 8A certification specifically. Next week, we'll be doing one with Southern California Edison, how to do business with Southern California Edison. So just keep your eyes open for other ones we'll be continue to do every week, just going into the future. So thank you all for being on the call. We also have on the call Mr. Raul Medrano and Mr. Michael Farage, who are our lead consultants when it comes to certifications and contracting. We also have Jermaine Carter Gibson, who is with the state of California, the DGS group, and we appreciate the partnership there in case we might have some questions there. But this partnership with the SBA is great. We're a small business development center as the Orange County Hispanic Chamber. We're a proud host of that, and we get funding from the SBA, the GoBiz office, and the governor's office, and we provide no-cost services to all our businesses here in Orange County and Inland Empire. So we have over 100 consultants ready to help anybody with their business, and specifically if you need help with certifications and contracting, you can reach out to Michael Farage and Raul Medrano, and their contact information will be on one of the slides here on the call. But it's now my distinct honor to introduce to you our presenter for today, Ms. Gloria Gomez, who is the lead business opportunity specialist for our great partner from the Small Business Administration. So thank you, Gloria, for doing this, and take it away.
Hey, Ruben, thanks a lot. And thanks for having me here today. I am happy to be here and share a little bit about federal contracting. There's a lot to learn. I normally host a workshop, back in the days when we used to have them in-house, that would be anywhere from 3 to 4 hours on this topic alone. So, this will be a very consolidated presentation, but I will try and hit, those major points and kind of starting to get you thinking about what you should be doing, thinking about places to do research, etc. If you are interested in federal contracting and specifically our 8A business development program. So again, thanks again for having me, and I hope that I can provide some good insight on this topic. So we're gonna first talk about, so on my slide, you'll see it's 8A business development program, but I'll also cover very lightly federal contracting. So what does the federal government buy? As you've probably heard, seen, the government buys everything from office supplies, janitorial services, furniture moving services, etc. But how do you know if they buy the way that you sell your product or service? I will talk about the different places that you can do your market research, but that's the number one response when somebody approaches me about how do I know if the government buys what I'm selling, or how do I learn about this? So I will cover places you can go to look for that information. I also want to point out that there are various levels of government and different certifications that you will need to look at if you're interested in doing business with those different sectors, as well as the private sector. So I always say in there, not all certifications are treated equal, because there isn't one certification that will help you to do business with all the entities, unfortunately. Okay, so like I mentioned, do your market research. Here's a pretty long list of websites that you can go to, but they will be very helpful in learning what the government buys, is looking to buy, or has purchased in the past, because that will help you, again, to understand how the government buys those services. Because like I said, they do buy everything, but they buy it in a specific way. And so it's important to learn that way. What is the way that they buy the service that I provide? Now, I will point out at the bottom of the slide, all entities must register on sam.gov. So even if you, at the end of this presentation, you don't feel that you're eligible for this certification or any other federal certification, if you are interested in doing business with the federal government at all, that will be your step number one. Create your free profile on the sam.gov website. And I do go into a little more detail as we proceed, but look at all these websites. And again, it's just information on past procurement trends, purchases, things that are out there. So you can kind of start to learn and see how does the government buy things. Okay, so I want to talk about a little bit about the benefits of being a small business. Sometimes we think I'm a small business, I have to compete against these larger businesses, etc. But there is a way that the government purposely has done to help small businesses, and that is through the government-wide prime contracting procurement goals. So of all the billions and billions of dollars that the federal government spends every year, there is a mandated goal to spend 23% of that on small businesses. Now you do see the subcategories listed there: small disadvantaged business, women-owned small business, hub zone, and the service disabled veteran-owned small business. The 8A program does fall under the small disadvantaged business, and the goal for that is 5%. And I always like to highlight what the actual achievement was for the federal government. So in FY18, which is the latest information released as of now, in FY18, the federal government purchased 9.65% of the total budget using the 8A program. So that's pretty huge when you consider that the goal is 5%. They almost doubled that. And that equates to 46.5 billion, B as in billions, of dollars given to these type of businesses. So that's a big highlight for the program, and to, an indication of the importance and the use of it, the high use of it. Okay, so that was just a real quick highlight of federal contracting. Again, we can talk about that, for hours, but I'll go on to talk about the specifics of the 8A program now. Okay, so what is it? I get a lot of questions about, is this a minority program? Is this a small business certification? What exactly is it? So, here are some factoids about it. The name of it, the government's not too creative. It's just literally the section of the Small Business Act where the rules of this program are housed. But it's a program designated to help small disadvantaged businesses to compete in the federal marketplace. Now, I do highlight in there businesses that are owned and controlled at least 51% by socially and economically disadvantaged individuals. And we'll go into detail about what that actually means. But the program does provide entrepreneurs with targeted management and technical assistance, which I'll talk about what that actually means for contracts and other business opportunities. And the program is actually a 9-year term, a one-time only opportunity. And again, we'll talk about what that means as well. So again, a benefit of that is that there is a government-wide mandate to use the 8A program. So you're actually helping that federal agency to meet their mandated 5% goal of small disadvantaged business through being an 8A certified company. So all these items that are listed on here are the ways that we provide business development to the certified businesses. So that's through marketing assistance, managing, through our mentor, protege, and joint venture programs. All of those are business development tools that we use to help your business, better understand, be better prepared to go after and ultimately win these contracts. And the way that we do that is the number one thing when you come into the program, once you're certified, is that we ask you to complete a business plan. And that business plan, you always hear it's a good idea to have a business plan for your business, but this is very specific to what your short-term and long-term goals are, 3 to 5 years of, what you expect from the program. That way, for someone like me, a business opportunity specialist, that's going to help you through this program so that I can better understand what your goals are, what you want to achieve. If it's, sell to the Navy, if that's your goal, then that's what we're going to help you achieve in the time that you're in the program. Now, of course, the biggest benefit and what most people seek this certification for is for the contracting benefits. And that's for contract set-asides and sole source. So what that means is that as an 8A certified business, you're eligible to receive set-aside contracts, bid for and win set-aside contracts. So now instead of bidding on a project where anybody can bid on, full and open, large business, etc., now the competition is now limited to other 80 companies similar to yours that have to meet the same criteria that you did, that have possibly the same resources as you do, that started off the same way that you did. So that, kind of narrows down your pool of competition. And so I will highlight that the sole source part of it is up to 4 million for goods and services and up to 7 million for manufacturing. And that's per contract. So a contracting officer can just say, hey, ABC Landscaping, I would like to give you this contract through the 8A program, and it can be a $4 million contract. And another agency can decide that they want to do the same. So that's definitely a big draw of the program, the set aside and the sole source contracts. And again, I just wanted to highlight, in fiscal year 2018, 8A firms won $46.5 billion in federal contracts. Okay, so this list here is a highlight, if you will, of the eligibility requirements. So these are the different categories that you need to, or that you'll be asked for information about to make sure that you're eligible for the program. And in the next slides, we're going to go into a little more detail, but basically these are the different categories that you have to meet of eligibility for this program. And I do highlight at the bottom that you must be an ongoing business for 2 or more years. That's sort of the minimum requirement for this. Again, federal contracting is a big undertaking. And so what the program likes to see is somewhat of an establishment of your business, a track record, so that we can determine if you have potential for success and things like that. So we'll continue on to talk about that. Okay, so first off, ownership. It must be at least 51% unconditionally direct ownership by the disadvantaged individual or individuals. So this person that we're looking at to be both socially and economically disadvantaged must be the majority owner, which is 51%. And that 51% can be made up of more than one person. However, each one of those individuals will have to meet each and every requirement listed, okay? So that is allowed. And as you see here, I highlight what a partnership, LLC, corporation would need to submit, and just to kind of indicate that any business structure is allowed into the program. There isn't a preference of one over the other. You just want to make sure that any documentation to show the ownership that you have in that business is clear, is up to date, and it's obvious to that person that's going to review your application that you are in fact the majority owner. Okay, the next thing that the SBA will review is control. So not only do we want to see on paper that you own 51% or more, we want to make sure that you are actually in control of the business. And what we mean by that is that you serve as the highest officer, you make the day-to-day decisions, you receive the highest compensation from the firm, that's usually a big one, that you possess the appropriate amount and type of management. So they do ask for your resume, they want to see that you are, it does demonstrate and it is obvious that you're in control and that you have the experience to run that business. You have the ability to hire and fire, work full-time at the applicant firm, another big highlight that I get a lot of questions on, and be physically located in the United States. That's how the SBA will determine that you are in fact in control of that business. Okay, so participants must be US citizens, either natural born or naturalized. And so you will be asked to provide a passport, birth certificate, or a certificate of naturalization. Okay, the next item is your size standard. You must be a small business to participate in this program. So what does that mean? And that's probably one of the top questions I get, on phone calls. How do I know if I'm a small business? I work out of my home. Does that mean I'm a small business? What exactly does that mean? And so the SBA has established what's called the size standards. For each and every industry, there is a size standard to determine whether you are a small business. And it's based on your NAICS code. So here we start with some of those acronyms. That's NAICS, and that stands for North American Industry Classification System. It's a 6-digit number that identifies your industry. And that's a an easy either Google search, or if you go to the census.gov website, you can find out or look at what the NAICS codes are to determine which one or which list of NAICS codes apply to your business. And on a side note, that's kind of how you'll search for opportunities when you're looking for what opportunities are available with the federal government. So it's important to have your NAICS code for a number of reasons. And the way you determine your size is either by the average of your 5-year revenue, so gross sales over the past 5 years, added together, divide by 5, and that gives you the average. And so if that number is within the realm of, and I have this little sample column chart here that shows the NAICS code, the title of it, and the size standard in either millions of dollars or numbers of employee. So you'll see, for example, the first one, 236115, that is the code for new single family housing construction. And the size standard for that is 39.5 million. So what that means, again, if you averaged out your sales for the last 5 years, if you are at 39.5 million or less, you are considered a small business. And I just, picked a few examples there so that you can see that not every category is the same. So it can vary. One is 8 million, one is 16.5 million. And then there are those that are employee-based. Many of those are in the manufacturing industry, but that's how you would determine if you are a small business. If you're, for example, in power distribution and specialty transformer manufacturing, then your size standard is 750 employees. If you have fewer than 750 employees, then you are considered a small business. And if this presentation is shared later, this SBA size standard table, that link will take you directly to that list so that you can take a look for yourself to see if you are in fact a small business. Because again, this is one of the requirements. Okay, so next, and this is a pretty big one as well, is potential for success. Again, we want businesses to come into the program and be successful, not to struggle and not to, unfortunately, some businesses go out of business trying to do business with the federal government. And that's not what we want. We want you to come in when you're ready for this type of contracting, if you will, this certification and what it entails. So this is a big review that the reviewing office will do. And the way they determine that is through a couple of these categories here. So if you have financial capability, for example, if you're a construction company, they're going to take a look at what your bonding capacity is to make sure it's at a good level. So again, that if and when you receive that contract, you're not going to struggle, you're not going to have a hard time performing, but you're actually going to do well. Again, managerial and technical capability, management capacity, and qualifications for ability to perform on federal contracts. So if you have experience working with any other level of government, then that's definitely going to help you. But these are questions that you'll see get asked of you in the application. And under that category of potential for success is that requirement of having been in business for two full years. However, and I do get asked this quite a bit, is there is an option to request a 2-year waiver, that we call it. So what that means is if you're not quite at 2 full years of having been in business, you can request a waiver. And what that means is that you feel that even though you're not at 2 years in business yet, you feel that you would be successful in the program. So in order to request that waiver, you have to meet these 5 things listed here. And again, basically we want to make sure that you have that potential for success. So we'll look at things like your business management experience, technical expertise, if the business has adequate capital to sustain your business plan. And again, if you've had successful performance on other contracts, then that would definitely help you if you are trying to seek that 2-year waiver. Okay, good character. Just like we've heard in all of these several COVID-19 relief programs where we're looking at, what your past record has been and if you qualify for any of those loan programs, that's the same for our program. The firm and all of its principals must show good character. And so what does that mean? The SBA will review any adverse information regarding criminal conduct, any violations of SBA regulations, if your business or yourself has ever been debarred, Any principal who's incarcerated or parole is automatically declined. Submission of false information during the application or after, that is cause for termination, of course. And any firm or its principals that fail to pay financial obligations to the federal government. So I will highlight this. This does include things like student loans, if you have any tax liens, or if you've been delinquent on any past SBA loans, that would you'd automatically be declined for not having good character. Okay, so now we'll get to the meaty part of this, social disadvantage, and what does that mean? So I'll read to you what the law says, and then I'll explain as best I can how you would identify yourself as a socially disadvantaged individual. So the definition is a US citizen who has been subjected to prejudicial practices because of your identity as a member of a designated group without regard to your individual quality. So that's a socially disadvantaged person. So let's talk about this a little more. The list on here is individuals that are presumed to be socially disadvantaged. And I always do the air quotes on that presumed to be. Back in the 1950s or 60s, when this law was written, these are the groups that were automatically presumed to be socially disadvantaged. Some things have changed. I'm not going to get into that, and some things have not. But even if you are within these categories, you will still need to provide a narrative on how you feel that you have been socially disadvantaged because you quote unquote belong to one of these groups. Now, if we can go to the next slide, I'm going to continue on. If you were not listed in that, or you were not part of that list, or you feel that you don't belong to any of those categories, we do have this category of non-designated groups. And what that means is that you must establish your social disadvantage on the basis of preponderance of evidence. And what that means is that your disadvantage may stem from other things like race, ethnic origin, gender, handicap, or other similar causes. And you must have personally suffered that disadvantage in the United States. The disadvantage must be chronic and substantial, but ultimately the discrimination or disadvantage must have negatively impacted your business advancement. And yes, a narrative is still required. So basically you would have to explain how being part of that quote unquote non-designated group has been of some sort of disadvantage to you. And in this slide, you'll see the types of evidence that you can provide. Now I will start off by saying it's not required, but if you have it, of course, it will help in establishing that you do have that social disadvantage. So anything that you do have, emails of people either calling you names, if it's that, if it got to that extent, or if you just feel, I've never been able to advance because I've always been put into this group, whether it's, based on your ethnicity, or I'm a woman and, I never got that promotion, or I never was able to advance my business because I was discriminated against in some way, then that's the story that you'll tell in your required narrative. However, again, in every case, SBA will consider the experience of the individual, and that could be education, employment, and business history, to the totality of circumstances to show that you had a disadvantage in entering into or advancing in the business world. Okay, so that's the first part of the socially disadvantaged, and now the economic disadvantage. This one, although it could get a little tricky, it's pretty straightforward because it's numbers. So you have to show that your, what we call adjusted net worth, is less than or equal to $250,000. And the way that we calculate that is we take your total assets, we deduct your total liabilities. We also take it further and deduct any equity that you have in your business. Whatever percentage share you have in that business will get deducted. Any equity in your primary residence. If you have any IRA or retirement accounts, those will also be deducted if there's a penalty for withdrawing early. And in California, we are a community property state. So we will, the reviewer will take into account your spouse's assets. We take a look at it as a 50-50 split, unless there is any kind of legal document, prenuptial agreement or any other document that indicates that you do not have access to your spouse or your spouse to yours, then they would not be included. But for the most part, it does take into account any of your spouse's assets in that calculation. The second item that is reviewed, if you can go back, sorry, is the personal income. So your average income over the last 3 years has to be less than or equal to 250,000. The third item is personal assets. So even though we go through that whole calculation of total assets minus total liabilities and all those other deductions, if your total assets are over $4 million, that may be cause to determine you not eligible as under the economic disadvantage part. And I put an asterisk there. If you want to look up on Google SBA form 413, that's a good form to use in trying to calculate that, just so you see where you stand. You know, you may say, oh yeah, I'm way under that 250, no problem. Or if you're like, well, I'm not sure, you know, I might be very close to that, then that's a good form to use to start entering your assets and to see if you fall close to that, under that, over that, you know, where you stand with that. Okay, so we talked about the benefits of the program. We talked about the eligibility for it. Now, if you feel that you want to continue with this and it's the certification that you want to receive, then I highlighted the 3 main steps for achieving that. So the first step is get all of your business documents together, because this application, I guarantee there will be a question about just about every aspect of your business and of you personally. So get all that documentation ready. It'll just make it easier for once you're in there typing in all your answers, get that ready. The next step, which I mentioned earlier, is creating a profile in the sam.gov website, and that stands for the System for Award Management. So like I mentioned, any business that's interested in doing business with the federal government must have a profile in there, for a couple of reasons. That's where the federal government will verify you as a legitimate business in the United States. That is also the system where you will get paid for providing your product or service to the federal government. So that's definitely an important reason. But also, if you're seeking a certification through the SBA, this will be step number 1 to have before you can even access those applications. So I kind of highlighted some things in there when you're in there. You will also need to have a DUNS number. You know, that's a free number. It's sort of like the Social Security number for your business, if you will. And you can, if you don't have one, or if you're not sure if you have one, you can visit the DNB website. So www.dnb.com, or you can call over the phone. And I will kind of warn you that they will try and sell you their services. They are a credit monitoring sort of for businesses service. So they will try and sell you that, but just tell them, I want my free DUNS number, and that's it. If you go through their website, there is actually a section where if you click on federal contracting, they kind of know that that's all you're there for. So you can get it that way. And also you will need your EIN number that's linked to your business, or if you're still like a sole prop and you have your Social Security number, you can use that as well. But just be prepared that they will ask you for all of this information when you're creating that sam.gov profile. Okay, and that process will take anywhere from a week to 2 weeks. But once that's active, your SAM profile is active, you will get an email stating that your profile is active. And so then you are now able to go onto the SBA's Certify system, create a login there so that you can access the application. So again, I just want to make sure you understand that the SAM is first. Once that is active, then you can go on to Certify and start creating your account in there. If you haven't done the SAM, it will tell you that it doesn't recognize your business because it's not active yet. So again, just make sure you go through that step first. And just a few tips in here that I list for when you're creating it, you know, as far as the strength of your password, remember all those pins and codes that you get once you're in SAM, because they will be asked for when you create your account and Certify. And in here is where you'll actually access that application. So the EDI application is now all online. I think 2 years ago we went full paperless, which is great. So you'll fill in all the questions and the forms on here. It will ask you for supporting documentation. And again, through the system, you can simply upload them in there. Now I will say the application might take you a few hours to complete, because again, they're asking you to verify your eligibility in all of those categories that we talked about. So ownership and control, size of your business, good character, etc. So you will, for every one of those categories, there will be a number of questions that you'll have to answer, again, because they want to make sure that, you know, you're eligible under each and every one of those categories. And so as far as the application process goes, typically it could be anywhere from 90 days plus, depending on the complexity of your business, if you have multiple owners, you know, if there's spouses involved, other partners, etc. It will get a little more complex, if you will. So the reviewer may come back and ask you for additional information or to clarify some information. You know, so you're looking at least 90 days if your application is complete, but it could be a little bit longer, especially now. I know that they've been bombarded with, you know, questions and just helping out with other areas of SBA. So it may take you a little longer. So just remember to be patient and double check everything when you submit any answer you provide, any document that you submit. Make sure that you look through it thoroughly and that you've answered that question. Okay, so that's my presentation, you know, summarized and kind of the short form. So I guess we can take some questions now.
All righty, Gloria. You know, one reoccurring question comes up to working full time and basic devotion of your firm. So we've got multiple inquiries. If you can be part-time qualifier or full-time to your firm to qualify for the 8A application.
Okay, great question. So ideally, we are looking for you to have full-time 100% devotion to your business. However, we do understand sometimes when your business is starting off, etc., you do need that extra income coming in from your, you know, your day job, so to speak. So they may allow for that, but they will ask you for sort of a plan. You know, is your plan to continue on for a year or two? What is your plan to kind of transition to full-time devotion to your business? So they may allow for that if you provide a good answer there. And I will say that once you're in the program, if we see that you have that outside employment, that is something that we monitor. So if you said, you know, my plan is within a year or two to transition over, we do review that on an annual basis to make sure that you're transitioning to that. So in short, they may consider that if you have a plan attached to that.
Okay, great, thank you. You know, another one that keeps coming up is the 2-year rule. So we had multiple questions about sole prop changing to an LLC if the 2 years reset. Another one is they were on a Schedule C for 9 years before they were incorporated. And so, you know, I'm hoping you can address just what the 2-year rule means and being active in your business.
Okay, so if you have transitioned from one business structure to another and you're able to demonstrate that, you know, through whatever legal document is attached to that business, if you have, you know, tax documentation indicating, you know, that this business was in business since this date, but it just transitioned over and you can show that transition, then and it's more than 2 years, then that would be okay. If you have less than that time and it's kind of hard to demonstrate that you switched over to a different structure, but you are able to kind of check off all that list of 5 items that the waiver requires, then that would be okay too. Because you could say, well, I have the technical expertise because I did run a similar type of business, you know, but it was just as a sole prop before, so I didn't have everything kind of in place. But again, if you can demonstrate that, then that should be okay.
Okay, great, thank you. Let's see. What's the process for certifying ethnicity, or what does, I'll ask better, what does SBA sample in terms of proving the social disadvantage component to the 8A application?
Okay, that's a great question. So I have seen so many variations of that. For example, there was a person that was coming in as a Hispanic American, and the certification office was asking him for not only his birth certificate stating what the ethnicity of his parents were, but also their birth certificate, the parents' birth certificate, to show what ethnicity they were. So I've seen the extreme where they go back a generation or two and trying to determine that you fall under one of those, you know, presumed groups, you know, especially if that's what you're claiming. I claim that my disadvantage is from being in one of these groups. Then I've seen that they go that far as to ask for that. So just be prepared to show that. It may not be enough that your last name is Garcia and that you say I'm Hispanic American. That might not be enough. You would have to substantiate that a little further. Now for the, and I will just add that for the other group, the other bases under the non-designated, the same thing, just because you say I am this and I was disadvantaged, that's not going to be enough. You do need to kind of substantiate that proof, if you will.
Great, thank you. Does the, I know we kind of glazed over it and we just had the groups for the socially disadvantaged.
Mm-hmm.
Does the SBA sample any other presumed groups, i.e. gender or age or so forth?
They are not considered presumed disadvantaged groups as of now. Again, like I mentioned, this is back in the 1960s when the law was written for this. There hasn't been change to that quote unquote list. So everybody else would be under that non-designated group. But what I always say is, regardless of which list you're on or not, you still need to provide a narrative, and that's where the basis of your disadvantage can be explained. So whether you're linking yourself to a specific group or not, or on part of the non-designated group, you're still providing that story and those reasons for having or feeling that you have been socially disadvantaged.
Okay, perfect. An attendee's asking, is the DBE certification in the same category as the 8A certification?
Okay, so if that's a disadvantaged business entity, I believe, it may be. Now, I know a lot of those are in the private sector and they may have different eligibility attached to them. Like I know there some of them are net worth based, or some of them may be just ethnicity related. So I would have to say no, but they can sometimes overlap. We do have participants in the 8A program that also meet the qualification for other ethnicity generated certifications. But specifically, I would have to say no.
Okay, perfect. Let's see. You know, this is in regards to SAM, and I want to present it, and then also you can answer it, Gloria, or I can answer it.
Okay.
There's been a lot of SAM renewal kind of websites that have been going out there, and they notify participants when their SAM is expiring and they want to charge them $250. And so the question is this from the government or not?
The answer is it's not. Every single federal program / certification is free to the public. Now, there may be services out there that, you know, again, want to charge you to do it for you. And that's an option that you have, but it is not required at all. There is always a free option to every single federal certification out there. So yes, kind of be careful. Look out for it to say, you know, sam.gov, to have that .gov. And if you're not sure, you can always shoot me an email, send it to me, and I can take a look at it. So yes, kind of beware, but you should not have to pay anything either to set it up, to renew it, to continue, nothing like that.
Okay. Do you classify Hawaiian born as a disadvantaged group?
Hawaiian born, that might fall under Pacific Islander. So you could claim that, but again, you still want to attach it to that social disadvantage. Now there is a category that it's not listed here because it's a little different and I didn't want to get too much into detail on that, but for Native Hawaiian organizations, that's another category that qualifies for this, but simply for being born a Native Hawaiian, that's not a specific category under this program.
Okay. I'm going to read this one and then let's see if we, so it's in regarding to the DUNS number. It says, if we do business in multiple states and are registered as a foreign business entity in our non-home state, are multiple DUNS numbers required? I'm not sure. I could tell you that, you know, you can have multiple DUNS numbers and you're gonna have your corporate office, which you're going to be, it's going to be your bona fide place of business when registering with the Small Business Administration for this program. And then you can bona fide several site location offices. But I'm not sure if he's asking if I'm not sure if he's a foreign entity or not. I don't know. If
right. So I'll address that part because that's easy. If you're a foreign entity, you're not eligible for the program. You do have to be located, registered, etc. here in the United States. That's definitely one of the items that they'll look at. As far as the multiple DUNS numbers, I agree with what you're saying. Basically, you have to choose your primary location, and the others can be, you know, satellite offices or additional sites. But just be clear that the certification will be for that one DUNS number that you designate as your primary business.
Okay. Does a certification apply to only one contract, or does it apply to several contracts over the 9-year term?
The certification, so you can use the certification to go after multiple contracts. I think if that's what the question is, throughout the 9 years, definitely.
Okay. Oh, here's a good question. Is the 8A certification required to get sole source contracts and or be in a mentor protege program? So do those activities basically only sit within the 8A certification?
Okay, so for sole source, yes, you do have to be certified as an 8A company to be eligible to receive a sole source contract under the 8A program. And I say that because there are options for other programs to receive sole source, like women-owned, hub zone, et cetera. But if it's specifically a contracting officer looking to award an 8A sole source, then yes, definitely you do have to be certified. As far as the mentor protege program, currently we have sort of two programs. One that was initially started under the 8A program, and then a newer version that's under the All Small Mentor Protege program. However, I will kind of say that those will merge into one soon, ultimately. So any small business with a mentor can apply for that All Small Mentor Protege program now. As a matter of fact, I encourage all of our 8A companies to use that program versus our 8A one, because again, that's going to be phased into that other program. So I don't know if that kind of answered the question. You don't necessarily have to be 8A for that All Small Mentor Protege program option.
Oh, perfect. You know, throughout the series, Gloria, there's been comments about qualified opportunity zone businesses. And today an attendee asked if you're in the 8A program, if you're prioritized. And so I wanted to address it just to address it, you know, if there are any priorities or, you know, other certifications that the SBA might have that addresses stuff like this.
Okay, so currently there aren't any priority given to 8A businesses in regards to the opportunity zone program. Those are currently separate, different, distinct programs. There is no overlap for those two at the time, even with any of our other certifications. Yeah, so that's a separate program in itself.
Okay. Let's see. An attendee said there are several certification companies, and do you think we can really do it ourselves? So, Gloria, maybe you can speak on the resources of the SBA, and then, you know, the SBDC, you know, and the Orange County Chamber of also.
Mhm.
Um,
Sure. Yeah, so definitely I've seen a lot of those consultants, companies, et cetera, that do offer to complete this for you. And I have a couple, I don't know if I want to say opinions or, you know, just experience of what I've seen with a couple of a couple of those. Now, they are going to charge you a fee. So that's first off the biggest difference. They're going to charge you a fee versus if you do it yourself, there's no cost other than the time, of course, that it's going to take you to complete that application. You will still have to provide the same bulk and detail of information to that company as you would have to input yourself. Definitely, I think it's worth attempting to do it yourself. First of all, if you're looking to do business with the federal government, I'd say start getting used to all these type of questions and requirements, and you know, having to fill this form and provide this information, etc. So it could be a good starter slash practice in just with the whole federal government environment. But my biggest suggestion is try it first. If you really feel like it's overwhelming, you can't do it, then definitely reach out to someone. And of course, always along that whole path is our resource partners that can provide assistance to you. I know some of them will sit with the small business and go even further and kind of just strategize the whole procurement um, strategy for you. You know, they'll say, okay, it looks like you're at a place in your business where, yes, this certification will work for you, or it's a good place to be. Or, you know, you're still kind of a little early on in your contracting slash procurement career. So let's kind of start off first at this level, get your feet wet, and then gradually move up to that level. Because again, this program is pretty intensive. It's only 9 years, so you don't want to waste time in trying to learn it because you're using up your time. So I know that's kind of a long answer to say, kind of give it a try. I think you can definitely do it. It will take you some time, but there are resources available to you to help throughout the process. If you don't understand a question, you can always, you know, shoot me an email, call me, or again, reach out to our different resource partners that have the capacity and capability to help you with that process.
yes, and Ruben Franco, you know, has let myself and Raul launch this certification and contracting program. So our information is there for attendees to utilize our services for free of charge. If there's any further questions, also. Let's see.
Yes.
Are there any tools you recommend for helping track or verify compliance with FAR regulations?
With the FAR, okay, that's a whole a course and process to think about. There aren't any that I'm aware of specifically that I could even recommend. It's just a matter of, you know, keeping on top of it. We do offer courses on kind of understanding it. Again, our resource partners as well kind of help you with that part. The PTAX might be a good resource for that as well. But definitely we do have through our 7J program, a different resource through the SBA on topics like that, understanding the FAR and all those regulations linked to contracting.
Okay, perfect. And then Gloria, so attendees can visit the SBA website and find information in regards to this certification and different certifications?
Yes, definitely. At sba.gov, there's a whole contracting tab that walks you through each program, the 8A, Women-Owned, Hub Zone, as far as what the eligibility is, what the benefits are, what the current application process is, because we are having changes made within each of those programs. So all that information is clearly identified on our website, as well as just government contracting in general. You know, what you need to know, what sites you can visit, et cetera, to get that information.
Perfect. I think we've hit our limit on time, and thank you, Gloria, for presenting this for all the attendees and answering all these questions.
Yes, of
Ruben,
course.
if you want to take.
Yeah. Thank you, Gloria. And thank you, Michael and Raul and Jermaine for being on the call. And all the attendees, thank you. Please join us next week when we have Southern California Edison on a call on how to do business with Southern California Edison and what's required, what certifications and what are they looking forward to in this environment to do business with them. So we appreciate it. Everybody stay safe and healthy out there. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.